The liberal gun grab is now live. Surrender your firearm by October 30th or face up to 14 years in prison. And Pierre Poilievre just backed Carney on Greenland. What the hell is going on in Canada? My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. Have you heard of the gun grab that is now happening throughout Canada? That has been unleashed.
Is it a new one or
to people like me?
Yeah,
it's what they were testing.
Yeah.
It's what they were testing in Cape Breton.
In PEI, right? Or yeah, Cape Breton.
Yes, correct. Cape Breton, yeah.
Yeah.
So this morning, Wilf.
Did you
one of our
Yep.
Well, listen. So Wilf sends me a message. Wilf, what's going on? Talking about him. So Wilf sent me a message on Facebook this morning and saying, "Hey, did you receive this?" And I hadn't looked at my Gmail. I use my Gmail is like my spam email now.
Yeah,
but I go to my spam.
Yeah.
I go to my spam email, and literally 50 minutes prior to him sending me this text, I get this email right here. Notice to individual firearm owner, assault style firearm compensation program. That's the headline, and it is coming from Public Safety Canada, saying that this is a notice to individual firearm owners, assault rifle firearm compensation program, or ASFCP, is now live and going. So the notice has been sent to me because I have a valid possession and acquisition license, which is, last time I checked, is more than 2 million Canadians have that license. And it goes on to say that as part of various actions and programs to tackle gun violence in Canadian community, beginning in May 2020, the government of Canada deemed prohibited more than 2,500 makes and models of firearms. Should you own one of those prohibited firearms, thank you for safely storing and not using that prohibited firearm. In prohibited these firearms, such as the AR-15, the government of Canada is also committed to compensating eligible businesses and PAL holders who are impacted. The purpose of this notice is to provide you with the opportunity to be compensated should you own one or more of those prohibited firearms. It goes on to say that there's 12,000 of these prohibited firearms that were successfully collected from businesses across Canada. More than $22 billion in compensation has been provided to those businesses. That means about $1,800, which in Canada, an AR-15 is not $1,800. Like, I had a Tavor that is prohibited. That thing cost me $3,000 to $4,000. Just the gun, no optics, no upgrades, nothing. Just the bare gun. So they're talking 12,000 of those prohibited firearms have been bought for $22 million. And I wonder if that money went directly to the business for the firearms, or running the program is also part of that compensation that we're seeing. But we're talking 2,500 makes and models. But here's where it gets very interesting. Obviously, if you do not possess one of those firearms, don't worry about it. It doesn't concern you. But if you do possess one of those prohibited firearms, you may do so. If you own one of those prohibited firearms and you wish to participate in the ASFCP and apply for compensation, you must first declare the prohibited firearms in your possession. Because right now, there's no, unless you declared it, or if you had it for a long time, they probably don't even know you own it. You may do so during the nationwide declaration period, which begins on January 19th today and will end on March 31st. So you literally have just over 2 months to declare it. On March 31st and after, declaration requests will no longer be processed. So you will not be compensated for your firearm. And it goes on to say that amnesty is scheduled to end on October 30th, 2026. Basically telling us that after the 30th, so starting on March 31st and until October 30th, all prohibited firearms and devices must be disposed of or permanently deactivated prior to that date. If you remain in possession of an impacted firearm following this date, you will be no compliant with this legislation. And I believe that in there, it actually says that if you are found, if you have not, oh yeah, reminder that this is important. Reminder, while the compensation program is voluntary, compliance with the law is not. Impacted firearms and devices must be disposed of or deactivated by the end of the amnesty period on October 30th, 2026. But if you do not deactivate your firearm, you will be in an illegal you will be illegally possessing a firearm knowing that it's illegal. And you're looking at up to 14 years in prison for something that you bought, that I bought legally. And
Jesus. Yeah. So it's interesting. Then they call it a voluntary program, eh? Voluntary buyback.
And you know, one of the things that's even that's really messed up about this is that I was doing some research earlier, and because normally what happens is I've had a buddy of mine that turns out that there's one of the firearm models that he owns that could be made fully automatic pretty easily. So the government banned it, as in they prohibited it. So nobody could buy that gun anymore. But it was grandfathered, as in they weren't taking your firearm away because you had it. You bought it legally, and it turns out that there might be a problem with it. The only time that I've seen that there's no grandfather laws after a ban, or that you could not pass it on, because that's the other thing that's messed up, right? You have some of those firearms are stupid expensive. Like I have a shotgun that's 70 years old. It's not impacted by that law, but my son will have his firearm permits. I will teach him how to shoot, and I would give it to him. I'm not going to sell it. We can't even do that. So you could have firearms that you plan to give to your children, and now because of that law, not only for the past few years have you not been able to shoot it, you can't even keep it now. If you want to keep it, you need to deactivate. So basically turn it into a paperweight, or you can give it to the police. Mm-hmm. Those are your choices if you don't want to be compensated. So you literally have until October 30th to either give it away for half the price that you probably paid, if not less, give it to the police for free, or deactivate it. No grandfathers, no grandfather possibility, and you cannot leave it to one of your children or one of your family member that has their license. And if you choose not to surrender that firearm or deactivate it by October 30th, you are facing up to 14 years in prison. And that, my friend, is Canada. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. We knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
But I'm really curious.
Especially voluntary, right? It's voluntary. You can say no, but you'll go to jail.
Technically, they're not wrong. It's voluntary. You can choose to say no, but there's consequences to your actions.
Yeah.
But what is very, very ironic about all of this is legal that they say that they do this, and I will quote here. They're saying that they are trying to make our community safer. This is why they're implementing that gun grab. Yet, law-abiding citizens are not the one committing crimes. People like me are not the ones committing crimes. As per statistics, we're like 2 or 3 times more safe than the average Canadian, because my name is ran into 2 different databases every day. on the federal level to make sure that I did not commit any crimes. And the RCMP has 24 to 48 hours, only needs to give me 24 to 48 hour notice to come check up on my firearms to make sure I'm storing them properly. I have less rights than a convicted pedophile. And that's a fact. The police cannot just show up to a convicted pedophile's place and just, we need to inspect all shit. They need a warrant to do that, unless he's on probation, obviously. But we have less rights than a convicted pedophile. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. That's the case right now. Now I could become a criminal by October 30th if I do not surrender my firearms. I don't render them inactive. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with this, because 14 years is no joke, man. 14 years in prison, that's insane. We got people that try to buy sex from a 16-year-old because they're an immigrant, they get a pass. But because I don't want to give my legally purchased firearm away, I could face 14 years in jail. That's the maximum. It goes from 5 years if you did not know. If you have an illegal gun in your possession, you didn't know, 5 years. If you knew, there's 10 years, and if there's another place where it's 14. So those are the three. And most of the cases, supposedly, as per what I was reading, they have a hybrid type of situation. So they're probably somewhere in the middle. But the good news for people in Alberta, Daniel Smith has said in the past that she won't enforce it. And if you're in Manitoba, good for you, because Wop Wop Canoe said that he will not enforce the gun grab either. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in Canada, in Quebec and Ontario, because this is where it's going to be decided. If people don't listen in Quebec or in Ontario, if I recall, that thing's going to fall.
The OPP said they're not going to enforce it. Is that correct, or has that changed?
I believe so. If my memory serves me right, you're correct that the RCMP said they would not enforce it. But today my goal was just to kind of talk about it, to say that it happened, because literally that's the email I received this morning, like millions, probably like 2 million of Canadians. But on Wednesday, I was able to get the National Firearm Association's VP of Communication, Blair Hagan, to join us to come speak about this. So Wednesday, 7:30, the VP of Communications for the National Firearm Association, which is one of the two big gun lobby group, I guess you would call them in Canada, the CFFR and the NFA. But yeah, so he's going to come on the show and we can go deeper as to what it means. That's what he does for a living. So he's going to know a lot more than you and I. And just as a reminder, tomorrow we do have Jason Levine joining us at 7:30 to speak about the Tories on and the Alberta sovereignty movement. And I didn't say this, but at 7:30 today, we're joined by John Carpay to speak about the how did we call it, to speak about
the Trudeau
what happened last Friday.
The Trudeau administration.
Well, I just want to find the actual real term here. It is it's the appeal, the federal court's appeal of the Federal Court of Appeal's ruling on Justin Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act was indeed found to be illegal and unconstitutional. So John is joining us like 10 minutes to speak about this.
Nice. I always love when John's on. John Carpay DM.
Yeah. So I'm just curious for the people out there, because I'm a gun owner. It's not that I talk about it or I don't talk about it. Like I'm a proud gun owner. I believe in owning guns and having the rights to defend myself, although we don't have that in Canada. But all to say, I possess firearms. I know most people, like, we only represent less than, I think, like 3% or 5% of the population. So we're not that many that owns them legally. But I'm curious for the people in the comment section. You don't need to tell me if you own firearms or not. I understand why you wouldn't want to talk about this. But do you think that that's normal? Do you think that that's normal that we have a government that is going after law-abiding citizens like me, for example, to confiscate their guns in order to fight crime? Because that's the idea, right? They're saying that we need to fight gun violence, and so we're going to grab the guns of the legal owners, yet we're not the ones committing crimes. Criminals are the ones committing crimes. And something stupid like 90% of the guns used in gun crimes don't even come from Canada. They come from the US. Like, the number is stupid high. Yet they're going after people like me. So I'm curious for the people out there. What do you guys think?
Yeah, let's see. Here we go. I just want to take this one from Penguin. It says, Rob, question, where's your line in the sand? Can you expand on that, Penguin? Specifically, what do you mean? Like, line in the sand?
Well, because you talked about gun ownership before, right?
Yep.
That's probably what he's referring to.
Yep. I wasn't sure if he meant gun specifically, or maybe like till I would no longer consider myself a liberal, because obviously I get that question a lot. I'll just wait for Penguin to clarify that. I mean, I've certainly got more informed on the gun issue since I started doing this show. Really, I still can't say it's a top issue for me, but I definitely am more understanding I understand why it's a top issue for gun owners. And if I became a gun owner, which I have no, if I needed a gun, then I like guns. I think they're fine. They're useful tools. Like you said, most people who, once you become a gun owner, you become political. And yeah, I could see that happening too.
Oh, that's one of the first thing my buddy told me. The guy that introduced me to firearms like 10 years ago. I wasn't very political back then. He's like, bro, the day you start going through the process of gun ownership, you start to see what actually people think of you and what you need to do in order to get firearms, you're going to become very, very political. And he was bang on. He was absolutely right.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
See, the point I'm trying to make with this, though, and the reason I wanted to talk about it is, at the same time as they're trying to censor us by Bill C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, and the new C63 that's gonna be retabled soon, they're taking our guns away. When in history has a government censored their people and then taken their guns away, and it turned out well for the citizens? That the government did not become tyrannical. Look at the US. There's a good reason free speech is their First Amendment. And then the Second Amendment is you can own all the guns you need in order to get your free speech back in case your government becomes tyrannical. Here in Canada, we have neither. And both of them are happening at the same time, because the censorship happened around the 2020. Like around the COVID time is where they really started introducing those censorship bills. And now you're starting to see, and Trudeau introduced the gun grab pretty much at the same time, like 2020 to 2022. It's somewhere along those lines. I'm pretty sure it's in 2022 that he started with those gun bans. So at the same, look, please point me at one time in history where you had a government that was disarming their people and censoring them, and it turned down fine for the people. I dare you. Find one instance that it worked out for the people. It never do. It never does. That's the problem. Yeah. So it's more than just to say, I have the right to go hunt and I have the right to do this. It's not about that at all. Those guns were purchased legally, and now the government feels the need to take those guns away from us. Why? Why? That's the question that's not being asked right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a fair point. It's the way it's being done, calling something voluntary, but if you don't do it, you go to jail. It's not really voluntary. I don't like that. Honestly, I don't see the. No one's clamoring for this. Even like people on the left, normal people on the left that you meet in your everyday life, no one gives a shit about. No one's demanding this, right? It's just why are you doing it?
Even Gary Apu there, the minister for public safety. Remember, he even said on camera that this was not his idea. It was Mark Carney that
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
this, and he
yeah.
was just continuing what Mark Carney wanted to do. So even him admitted that he didn't really believe in it. And just look at the hypocrisy that's going on right now in Minnesota. Did you see that some of the lefties now are buying guns and they're showing up to protest with AR-15s? So the same people that were telling us that, do you remember the guy that shot somebody in self-defense at a Kyle something?
Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yes. Remember how he shot somebody at a protest in self-defense because he was getting attacked? People, the left were like, you should have stayed home. Now the same people that called him names
are driving 400 kilometers, 400 miles away to go to Minneapolis. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
That's the hypocrisy right there. But we don't even have that in Canada. And like you said, I'm not hearing people on the left. There's one organization that's talking about the gun grab, really, and it's the people that are part of the Polytechnic. You know, there was one shoot that happened in the 70s, and people don't know, but that guy was actually converted to Islam, just so that people know, but they never talk about that part because that guy has a French name, but his father was a Muslim. So, but they don't address that part. The guy was a sexist. He killed women only, was telling men to leave.
Yeah.
But they don't talk about that part. They just talk, that happened. Okay, one time. One fucking time. So, but they're still talking about it. And I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. That's not what I'm saying.
It's not that, like, you know, if this was something that was really being pushed by the rank and file on the left, then at least you could say, well, this is why they're doing it. You know, they gotta, you know, dance with the people they came with. To use a saying, right? You got to feed the hand that, or whatever that thing is, respect the hand that feeds you or something. But the point is, no one's doing that. Like, I don't see any large, I'm sure there are specialty advocacy groups dedicated towards gun control, but beyond them, just the regular. I guarantee, if you asked even the average lefty what their top 5 priorities are in Canada, guns would not be on there.
No, because we definitely don't have the same polarization issues every day on TV like you see in the US.
Yes.
I know John is going to join us.
Wildflower.
Yeah,
I bite the hand.
I forget.
Mixed metaphors there, but yeah, you got me.
We understand. Now, John's is gonna join us in a few minutes. I don't know that I'm gonna have time. We're 2 minutes in, so I don't have time to address the other subject I wanted to. But Pierre Poilievre doesn't back Carney, and nobody cares. Well, you know what? I'll bring it up. Clearly, you care because you wouldn't have commented if you didn't care. So first, you do care. Second, he did back Carney, as in he did. I'm just bringing up. I didn't think I would have time to show it, but did you see the post he made yesterday about what's going on in Greenland?
Who?
Pierre Poilievre. Well, PP. PP.
PP. Oh, yeah. It was about the tariffs, right? And he's saying basically he was against it.
No. It's about Greenland. So basically,
but he was saying Trump's wrong for what he's
yes,
not the tariffs, but because he applied tariffs on Europe to get pressure on Greenland. Yeah.
So Pierre Poilievre said it is unacceptable for the U.S. to seize the territories of a sovereign country, including by threatening tariffs on other NATO countries. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and we support its territorial integrity. Conservatives support NATO. Wrong. And Canada's obligation as a NATO member. Wrong. Canada should strengthen the NATO alliance and rebuild our own forces in the Arctic to combat threat, also coming from China and Russia, and to protect our seas, skies, and soil. I agree with the last part, but Canada should strengthen NATO alliance. Wrong. But this is the same dude that just a couple of weeks ago said this. So this is the hypocrisy. So David, sorry, I'm just bringing up the other one. I think I made a mistake here. David, the PP doesn't back Carney. Clearly he just did, because he pretty much said the same thing Carney said. But on the other post, do you remember when he said that he congratulations to President Trump on successfully arresting narco-terrorist and socialist dictator Nicolas Maduro, who should live out his days in prison. So he's okay with Trump taking out the president of Venezuela, but he's not okay with Trump suggesting that he wants to buy Greenland. You know, sometimes, man, the whole point of this is sometimes you need to shut the hell up and keep your fucking mouth shut, because nobody cares about what you have to say, and you're not moving the needle. Canada's not doing shit. I understand why Mark Carney had to say something about it, because he's the prime minister. I completely disagree with him, but I understand why he had to say something, because the media is asking him. Nobody cares about what Pierre Poilievre has to say, and you should see the hate he's getting off of that comment. So many conservatives are like, are you serious? Like, what are you saying here? And I commented on him.
Conservative support NATO part? Because that does.
No, the whole post. People are just like, what the hell are you talking about? Why are you getting involved in this? You're not moving the needle at all. One of them called, man, that's funny. I laughed my ass off when I heard that, but one of them called him, hey, Timu Trump. Maybe you should shut the hell up. So, Trump. You know, sometimes you just need to not share your opinion because nobody's asking and you're not helping the cause. Yeah. You can't stop him. He's not going to invade Greenland. Just like he didn't invade Canada to force it to become the 51st state. He's using that as a negotiation tactic and to keep you speaking about him. That's what Trump wants, right? But yet people are ripping into Pierre Poilievre because he's basically backing Carney, which, if you wanted to know if he was a liberal, I guess there's your answer.
Yep. Just before I bring John in, I just want to quickly reiterate what Penguin says here. He says, great show so far, guys. Hit the likes for these dudes. And yes, we cannot recommend enough what Penguin is saying there. Guys, remember to hit those likes midstream. It definitely helps us with the algo.
John, thumbs up if you're ready to go. John does thumbs up. Awesome. So we are joined by the President of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom and friend of the show, John Carpay, to speak about the Federal Court of Appeals ruling that Justin Trudeau's use of the Emergency Act was illegal and unconstitutional. Let's see if John corrects my verbiage here. John, hello.
Hey, John. How's it going?
Hey, sir? Bonsoir. Good evening. Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for being here, John.
As always.
So,
always a pleasure.
Illegal and unconstitutional. Is that accurate?
Yes. The lower court ruled 2 years ago that the sorry. The lower court ruled 2 years ago.
To my layman's ear, that sounds bad. Go ahead, John.
Sorry, is my audio and sound is good?
Yeah, all is good.
Yes,
John. We can hear you.
Okay, good.
We can hear you.
I think I'm lagging a little.
Yep.
So 2 years ago, January 2024, we got this lower court ruling that the federal government, I guess the prime minister in particular, but it was the cabinet, the government acted illegally when they declared that there was a national emergency and they proceeded to freeze bank accounts and to use violence against peaceful protesters. And this was a court action for which the Justice Center provided lawyers to 4 Canadians who had their bank accounts frozen, who were present in Ottawa, who had seen how peaceful the protest was, who had seen how violent the repression was, etc. So we provided lawyers, and then there were other groups that also had their own court actions, and they were all consolidated together. So it was a great victory because everybody was, well, I certainly was. Lots of people were very discouraged. Our country is going downhill in many ways. It's a very bad situation. However, here we have a federal court ruling by an Ottawa judge who is very much a part of the Ottawa establishment. You could tell from his ruling, he despised Tamara Leach, Chris Barber, the truckers, the protest. He thought that they were, probably criminal, probably dangerous, probably violent, certainly bad people. He thought there was Nazi flags all over the place. He didn't understand that Diagolon was an internet joke. He thought that Diagolon was an actual, a serious terrorist organization. So here is an Ottawa judge, very much part of the Ottawa establishment, who very much dislikes the protest. He thinks it's disruptive, it's inflicting, he thinks, huge amounts of economic harm, which is kind of ironic when you think about the economic harm of lockdowns, but I digress. He thinks the protest is bad. It's very harmful economically. It's causing severe inconvenience to huge numbers of people. He really dislikes the protest. He makes that very clear throughout the ruling. And then he says, but based on the facts, the Coutts border dispute had been resolved. The Windsor, Ontario border dispute had been resolved. The only thing that was still left was we have a local protest in Ottawa where there's no arson, there's no violence, there's no cars set on fires, there's no shop windows smashed in, there's no threats, there's nobody being shot. But all that's left is a local protest in Ottawa. And he says this is not a serious threat to national security, nor is it something that cannot be handled by ordinary law enforcement, right? You got your criminal codes, you got your Ottawa City Police, your Ontario Provincial Police, you got the RCMP, just use ordinary law enforcement. So it was a big slap in the face to Trudeau and the cabinet. They declared within 20 minutes or 45 minutes, I forget which, in less than an hour after the court had released its decision, which was 50,000 words, okay? More than 50,000 words on more than 100 pages. There's nobody, I don't care how well you can speed read, there's nobody that can read 50,000 words on 100 pages in 40 minutes. So neither Trudeau nor Chrystia Freeland nor the rest of the Liberal cabinet, nor any of the federal Justice Department lawyers had read the judgment, and immediately they have a news conference to announce that they are going to appeal, which is sick. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong for a government to want to appeal a court ruling against it, but you read the thing first and you see if there's actually any legal flaws in it. So they appealed it based on pure political arrogance was their motivation. Now, 2 years later, we get a federal court of appeal ruling this past Friday, and it upholds the lower court ruling from 2 years ago. I am thrilled.
So let me ask you this, John, because I posted about this on Friday when it came out, and I knew you were involved. I knew your organization was part of this because we have spoken about this before. But I pretty much said, this is great, but so what? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but we cannot prosecute criminally Justin Trudeau or Chrystia Freeland because they have Crown immunity. So technically, people like us cannot go after them criminally for what they did. So correct me if I'm wrong here. And if I am accurate, what does it matter that the Court of Appeal ruled in your favor?
So 3 very good things about it. First of all, it sends a signal to all the courts in Canada that it's okay to rule against a government. So that's a breath of fresh air, because from 2020 right on through to 2024 into 2025, we've had so many perverse court rulings where they have not seriously considered the evidence, and they've written a media narrative about COVID and lockdowns and vaccines. They've written a media narrative into their court rulings, which is very bad, because the courts should be neutral and not be a rubber stamp for government violations of our rights. So the first benefit is it's a reminder from the second one. The Federal Court of Appeal is right below the Supreme Court of Canada. It's influential court. They're saying it's okay to rule against the federal government. So that's really positive. Second positive thing, I know that this was just brought to my attention a few hours ago. Diane Magus, who is the lawyer acting for Chris Barber, she is incorporating this federal court ruling into her appeal documents as Chris Barber and the Crown, moving on to the next level of appeal. So she's looking at it as a persuasive precedent. I don't know for what specific point. Thirdly, you've got Tamara Leach, Chris Barber, and other people have commenced civil actions against the government over the freezing of bank accounts. I believe there's more than one action. I don't know how many there are in which provinces and which lawyers and which plaintiffs. But here you have affirmation again that it was a violation of our Charter Section 8, the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. So Charter Section 8 was unjustifiably violated. That's what the court has said. That can only help civil lawsuits that are in progress. So those are the three benefits.
But like I said earlier, they cannot be held accountable criminally. I mean, Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, because they have Crown immunity, correct?
Yes, they are not going to be personally liable, but that holds true for all kinds of laws. You could pass some environmental policy that does nothing good for the climate and harms the economy, throws people out of work, pushes us towards poverty. And we have a democratic process. It doesn't always work to our liking, but we have a democratic process. You can vote out one government, vote in another government. I'm not sure if I would want to see a system where every time after the election, every time a government's voted out of office, we have all these lawsuits because they had bad policies or they made bad decisions.
But we're still talking about them being proven that it was illegal what they did. So we're not just talking bad policies here. We're talking about bad faith, because they're not stupid. Like we can agree that as much as they sound like idiot, I mean, by talking about Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau, they're not stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing. So shouldn't it be part of the process to have that bad faith element to hold those people accountable? Because if we don't hold them accountable, what's preventing the next set of politicians to do the exact same thing, knowing that they can just walk away and not really ever see the inside of a prison? Because that's the part that bothers me. Like, you can go after them for their money. Good luck proving bad faith. You can go after the Crown, and that's probably like, we all agree that what happened to Barber, what happened to Tamara Leach, what happened to King should have never happened. That we all agree, and I hope that they get dismissed, they get they get what they deserve, as in, do they deserve to get paid for what they gone through? That's for you guys' job to decide. But what I'm saying is, I think we can all agree that they don't deserve what happened to them. But I want those people to be in prison. Justin Trudeau deserves to be in prison. Chrystia Freeland deserves to be in prison. Yet both of them are going to walk away with a full pension, living large for the rest of their lives, and we're going to be paying for them when they did something that is considered criminal, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I share that frustration that we are not yet seeing people being brought to justice who should be brought to justice. We can fix this problem. One way to fix it is you can change the Emergencies Act legislation, and you can say that if subsequent to the declaration of a national emergency, if a court finds that the government did not comply with the terms and conditions of the Emergencies Act, then the politicians in charge will face, criminal prosecution, or, there'll be penalties set out. Now, you can change the Emergencies Act to do it that way. Bear in mind, that's a double-edged sword, because you could be in a situation, not likely to happen, but let's say that you had an armed insurrection of some very bad people that were actually going to overthrow democracy in Canada and seize control of the government and seize control of the military, et cetera, et cetera. If you had a real, true emergency, or maybe it wasn't in the nature of a terrorist takeover or a coup, but maybe it was in the nature of, let's say you got forest fires burning from coast to coast or something, right? Which probably wouldn't happen, but whatever, okay? We have to think twice. Do you want the legislation to say that politicians can go to jail for using it? Because if you put that provision in there, then the Emergencies Act will never be used, because all the politicians will always be scared. And maybe that's the result that we want. But I'm just saying we need to think carefully. If you change the legislation to allow politicians to be punished for a subsequent court finding that they didn't meet the standards, okay? If you change the legislation, then be prepared with the consequence that maybe the legislation will never be used. And that could be a problem if there was a true emergency. Or maybe not. Maybe we don't need the Emergencies
a question
Act.
you had mentioned. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You had mentioned that you were happy. Okay. You had mentioned that you were happy just that the courts kind of pushed back and said that the government can be wrong sometimes. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, because, I feel like I'm more familiar with the American, rulings and stuff, just because it gets more press, more media. And it seems like they regularly push the judicial branch does push back against the executive quite often. Is that not something that happens here in Canada, or do the courts typically just rubber stamp whatever the government does?
Well, sadly, in Canada, it's become political. So I'll give you an example. In Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith announced, I think it was 2 years ago that she announced it. She announced that we're going to protect children and teenagers from unscientific transgender ideology that targets children and tells boys that they can become girls and women, tells girls that they can become boys and men, which is false. It's not possible. And so to protect children, and also joining international movement, which is very much moving away from this, transgender ideology. Let's give puberty blockers to children, and let's give them opposite sex hormones, and they will never become parents. They will never become mature sexually. They will never become mothers and fathers. So the world is moving away from this. So Danielle Smith passed a law in Alberta that there would be no puberty blockers and opposite sex hormones given to kids. I think it was 16. I don't know if it was with or without parental consent. Anyway, she put some restrictions on this to protect children. And there's no gender reassignment surgeries to people under the age of 18, full stop. So a very sensible policy. Now, the LGBTQ group AGAL went to court, and surprise, surprise, they got an injunction against the legislation. So, and same thing in Saskatchewan. The government of Scott Moe, this is 2 or 3 years ago, they had a policy that if a student at school is going to start using opposite sex pronouns and start opposite sex name, clothing, bathrooms, change rooms, sports teams, right? If a girl is going to try to live like a boy at school, or if a boy is going to try to live like a girl at school, parents have to be notified. So LGBTQ group goes to court, they get an interim injunction to strike it down. So Saskatchewan used the notwithstanding clause, which is a sensible and necessary thing to do. In Alberta, policy to protect children from transgender ideology, court strikes it down on an interim basis, but that would be 2 or 3 years would be the interim basis. So the government comes back, uses the notwithstanding clause. Sorry to be so long-winded. So the answer to your question is courts will rule against government and strike down policies if it's a woke, activist, progressive, equity, diversity, inclusion. If it's something that's a neo-Marxist ideology, then the courts will say yes, and they will rule against the government. But if it's coming from a different perspective of religious freedom, or just our fundamental charter freedoms, like your freedom of association to have Christmas dinner with your mother or with your kids, right? If you're going to court against lockdowns, then the courts are very eager to just rubber stamp whatever the government does.
Mhm.
We've seen this over and over again. I wrote a book about it.
But you're basically saying at this point, you're arguing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're arguing to the point of the government should have some type of emergency power or withstanding clause to kind of push what they're trying to do. But, and correct me if I'm wrong up to now, that's what you believe, that the government should have some type of almost full authority in certain very specific cases in order to deal with not normal situations. Like, I don't like to call them emergencies, but let's say for the sake of argument that they are used in an emergency. So you are
let's call it a real emergency, a true emergency. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
But
the
kinda making my
virus was
point.
not. Yeah.
But you're kind of making my point. That is exactly my point. What's the difference between an emergency and a real emergency if you know that you cannot be held accountable criminally for your actions under the Emergency Act? And that's not just on the federal level. For the people listening, I know in Quebec, they have an Emergency Act that was established 25 years before it was ever used. And it's only supposed to be used for 30 days, 1 month at a time. And the premier kept on renewing it every month. He would go, during COVID, it's like, we need the emergency again. We need the emergency again. So there's a difference between an emergency, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, to I'm going to need to see your passport for you to go eat at the restaurant. But if that Emergency Act was not there, or if it was there, but they could be held accountable criminally, as in spend the rest of their life in prison, I guarantee you they'd be a lot more careful about the way they use it. And it's the same way as us. If I know that there's self-defense in Canada, example, I know that if I defend my family, I'm gonna be in court. I might walk free, I might not, but I'm going to court, no questions about it. I'm gonna see the inside of a court. Why should it be any different for our government, considering the amount of power that they have? You should have to explain yourself after you use the Emergency Act. It should go to court automatically, and you better prove that you needed to do it and you did it for the best of Canadians, because obviously, I think we can agree on that, at least, John, that they did take advantage of the Emergency Act. They weren't stupid. They knew exactly what they were doing, and now they walk free. That's what bothers the hell out of me, is they can just walk away with their full pensions and just live at large on the back of Canadians, even though they never really worked for us.
I can't disagree. I don't disagree. It was disgusting. Even before invoking the Emergencies Act, we have the evidence before the Public Order Emergencies Commission that the federal cabinet, without knowing any facts about who Tamara Lich and Chris Barber were, without knowing anything, they crafted ahead of time, before the first truck rolled into Ottawa, they said, this is what is going to be the narrative. These guys are dangerous, violent criminals. They're going to be like the January 6th United States, where you had the I don't know what to call it, attack on Congress, or, violent protest, whatever. So this is going to be like the Canadian version of January 6th. These are dangerous, bad people. They want to overthrow the government. They are, they're Nazis, they're white supremacists, and they decided that narrative. And then the government-funded media ran with that and just reported blatant falsehoods. And they kind of bounced back and forth. So the politician would say, well, the truckers set a building on fire. And then the media would say, well, the truckers set a building on fire. And then the politicians would say, well, the media has reported that the truckers set a building on fire. They went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The truth of that, came out that yes, there was a guy who did try to set a building on fire. Luckily, he was caught and stopped, so the building did not catch fire. That guy had absolutely nothing to do with the Freedom Convoy, but yet you still had the media reporting on it. So it's a disgusting and unethical. Now, to what extent do you start to prosecute people after they leave office? It's a difficult question. Because you see in the United States, they went after Trump after he stopped being president. Is the Trump administration going after Biden now? I don't know. If they are, is it a good idea? Do we always prosecute people when I ask that open-endedly, right? Do we always prosecute people who leave office, who have been caught lying? Because that's almost all the politicians of all the parties, or many of them, maybe I won't say almost all, I don't want to exaggerate, right? But there's many politicians who get caught lying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do we always prosecute these people after they leave office?
No.
Well, that's a great question, because I believe that it is, I'm Googling it right now, I believe that it is Welsh. So Welsh lawmakers want to put criminal consequences for politicians that are caught lying. So if you're in office and you openly lie and it's proven to be a lie, the new legislation that they're trying to pass would make
that's hard
that
to
a
prove,
crime.
Because the lie includes mindset. It's not just being wrong, right? You could be wrong without lying.
Oh no, lying and being wrong are two different things, or else you'd always be lying, Rob.
Absolutely.
You'd always be lying, Rob, if that was the case. But you're
one giant liar.
Yeah, but yeah, John, I'm happy for you guys, because I know the Justice Center has been involved in this for a long time. I was happy to have you on because I knew I could ask those questions without hurting your feelings. But at the end of the day, when I saw that come out on Friday, I was happy for you guys, but my first thought was, so what? So what? So thank you for being here, John. Thank you for always being a friend of the show, showing up whenever we want you on. It's always appreciated. I don't know if there's something else you wanted to pitch before we kick you out, but thank you very much for being here, John.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation. I like talking with you guys, and I don't get me wrong. I think Canada is in very, very serious trouble, and we are rapidly going downhill. And we are in a crisis in terms of our rights and freedoms, and in terms of an independent judiciary that doesn't just write a media narrative into court rulings. We're in big trouble. However, from time to you get a court ruling like this, where a court right below the Supreme Court of Canada rules against the federal government and effectively denounces their illegal conduct. From time to time, let's allow ourselves to celebrate the occasional victory and to feel encouraged to keep on fighting, because we're going to keep on fighting until we win.
Just because I can't let you get away with this, I will have to ask you, can you give me like a 1-minute opinion of what you think of the liberal gun grab that started today that's going federal?
Yes, I will say that, in my opinion, and others will disagree, but I don't think that there is a strong legal constitutional basis for resisting it. I think the failure, frankly, this is going to make me very unpopular in some quarters, but the firearms groups or groups of firearms owners, the only way they can win this battle is to educate the Canadian public about the positive usage of guns. You have a lot of ill-informed, under-informed, misinformed Canadians whose only conception of a gun is that it's this very evil thing that is used to, shoot children at a McDonald's and to commit crimes. And they don't understand the benefits for hunters, for farmers. They don't understand that a woman can defend herself against a rapist or an assailant with a gun. A gun is an equalizer. A small woman who does not have a black belt in martial arts, who's got a handgun, she can defend herself very well against a rapist or somebody who wants to assault her. That is factual, it's truthful, and it's emotional. And if I was running a firearms group, I would be raising money and spending money to do a massive advertising campaign 365 days a year to educate particularly urban Canadians and female Canadians and young female urban Canadians. They're the driving force. They're going to vote Liberal because they think that we can, protect society by this stupid, trying to register every firearm. So, sorry, I may have gone on for more than a minute, but I mean,
No.
again, to make myself unpopular, the firearms groups need to clean up their act and become effective by educating the public and changing public opinion. If they don't do that, we will come to a point sooner or later where every firearm in Canada will be confiscated because these firearms groups are not doing their job.
Yep, there's a lot of people that are going to hate you after that. You're going to feel what it feels like to be me. Good for you, John.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for being here, John. It's always a pleasure. I don't know if you had something else to add, Rob, but
No, that was it for John. Appreciate you, sir. Always a pleasure to have you on.
À la prochaine.
Take care,
Bonne
John.
nuit.
Absolument. Bye, John.
Bye-bye.
Guys,
So, before you go, just let me take one comment because I saw that comment twice now.
Anubis.
The first one,
Hayes.
the first one I called out, so I'm going to call this one out too. Your title of your channel is a sham, and I'm blocking it from my feed. I don't like liars. Okay, cool, awesome. Don't let the door hit you in the back. But hopefully, you should have stayed for the 5 minutes that I was talking, because obviously he's talking about the Poilievre backs Carney. At least that's what I'm imagining. Because
we already
again,
talked about that. We talked about
no,
that
but again, this is one of my biggest gripe with the conservatives out there. And when I say conservative, I'm air quoting here the people that support the Conservative Party of Canada. It's okay for them to talk bad of the Liberals and Mark Carney, but they cannot talk bad. It's unacceptable if you talk bad about Pierre Poilievre. That's political tribalism. You're no better than elbows up. You just support somebody different. But the mentality is the same. Pierre Poilievre backed Carney when it comes to Greenland. He basically said the same fucking thing. So don't give me this shit that he didn't back him. He did back him. And this is not the first time he backs him. And if you're not talking about Pierre Poilievre and you're talking about the 14 years in prison, guess what? If as a gun owner, I don't surrender my prohibited firearms, and I actually need to check if any of my firearms are prohibited, because last time I checked, they weren't. But there's 2,500 of them, so I'm going to have to confirm if I do have prohibited ones. But my point is, I could be facing 14 years in jail. That's the law right now. That's the criminal code. You can go check it out for yourself if you want. And we will be talking about this more on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. So don't like what I'm saying. That's fine. Call me a liar all you want if that makes you feel better. Because I'm used to people calling me a liar. But that's the whole point of the show. You need to be able to call your leaders, no matter if you're lefty or righty, you fit somewhere in the middle, or you don't have anybody that represents you. You still need to be able to call them out, because none of them are doing a very good job right now, and they definitely are not working for Canadians.
Guys, if you are, it looks like we got a lot of new faces here tonight. Lots of the numbers are pretty high. So if you are just tuning in, welcome to the Political Orphans. If you've been watching the show, you might have caught John Carpay from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He was in here to talk. He's a friend of the show. He comes here pretty regularly to do some deep dives into any new judicial decisions that come down. And if you caught the half hour before him, you would have seen us taking a lot of comments, taking a lot of questions. That's kind of what we do around here. Audience engagement is huge part of the show. So if you're new, remember to get those comments in there. We will get to them sooner or later. We're gonna, we can't get to every single comment, but if you're here pretty regularly commenting, we're definitely gonna take some of yours. If you want to support the show, you can do that by becoming a member through YouTube for the low price of $2.99 per month. You can also buy us a coffee, which you'll see in the VR code or QR code up in your upper right hand corner of your screen. And again, a third way to support the show is just keep coming back, throwing those comments out there. But yeah, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that interview. I always like when John comes out. I get what he's saying. I don't think. I know there's a lot of I know there's a lot of pressure and push for like people to go to jail over this, but just from a legal standpoint, you know, what the court said is he applied the law wrongly, but like to use like the law itself, it was is like he had those powers. He just used them incorrectly. I think that's what they're saying. I think it'd be hard pressed to get criminal convictions out of that. And you know, if people want to push for that, I think that's fine. But I think the more important thing is reform of the system itself. You know, either rewrite the law to make sure it can't be, you know, a well-written law for that's like that describes, you know, the ways government can use extraordinary force or power. You know, there should be no way it can be used wrong. It should be very clear in the scenarios, the situations you can use them, and we shouldn't even be having these issues.
Yeah, but that's never going to happen. And I would argue that the system itself has been written in a way to protect politicians from being sued criminally. Like that's the problem. The problem is not that they didn't go to jail. The problem is that the system has been written to protect them, and that's why they have liability. They're protected by the crown. Like they're not going to see the inside of a prison, although it was proven that what they did was unconstitutional and illegal. If I break the law, guess what? There's consequences for my actions. For them, there's not. And like I was telling John, what's preventing them from not doing it again? And that's the part that really bothers me, is you're basically encouraging our politicians to do whatever the fuck they want because they know that they'll be protected if they mess up. That's the part that bothers me. But that Emergency Act, if you're using it, you should automatically have to go to court in order to explain why. Or maybe you should go to court and try to convince. Maybe you need to convince the other people. Our party, our system has an opposition. If the opposition doesn't agree with you for the Emergency Act, maybe you need to be able to convince them and they need to say yes, although I don't trust neither side of the equation. But it does seem like the system itself, yes, but the system is definitely written in a way to protect politicians. And I don't think anybody can argue with that.
Oh, undoubtedly. All right, guys, we're gonna pin in there, or we're gonna pin it for the night, as we like to say here. Trevor Benson says, "Great show, guys." Appreciate that, Trevor. Guys, remember to like and share the stream as you're watching. That'll help boost us in the algorithm and help us bring the show to more people. I just did the spiel like 2 minutes ago, so I won't do that whole thing again. But just reading the comments, looks like we got a lot of people like the interview, like the episode. So glad to hear that, guys. Have a great rest of your evenings. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you tomorrow night, and make sure to get those comments in here when you come back tomorrow.
Peace.
Peace.